Welcome back to our malicious compliance. In today's video, a newly appointed and thoroughly awful entitled boss fires OP for being pregnant, completely failing to realize just how irreplaceable she is to the entire organization. Let's jump straight into it. The title story goes like this. Hey Reddit, this went down a few years back, and I'm still riding high from it. Someone encouraged me to share this after I brought it up at a party. I've kept certain details fuzzy to protect myself. So here's the thing. I live and work in a relatively small, newer country in Central Asia. Think one of the stands. Our main economy revolves around natural resources, oil, gas, minerals. If it can be dug up or pumped out, we're doing it. That means our entire national infrastructure is built on pipelines and processing facilities. That's where I enter the picture. I'm a geotechnical analyst. Sounds dull, maybe, but what I actually do is pretty one of a kind. I don't just stare at maps. I'm the one who signs off on subsurface stability and pipeline routing for every major project in the country. Think of my role as a strange blend of old-school Soviet-era geological surveying. Learned from my mentor, the only other person who ever did this work, and cutting-edge satellite resonance imaging software. That traditional knowledge is absolutely essential. Our country sits in a highly seismically active zone. You simply cannot rely on a software program alone. You have to be able to feel the land, interpret old charts, and recognize deep earth shear risks that no algorithm is built to detect. To put humbly, I'm the best. Very modest, I know. More critically, I'm the only individual in the entire country who holds a particular international certification. Let's refer to it as the ISO XYZ. That certification is a hard requirement set by the major international partners, German, American, and Chinese consortiums, that bankroll these multi-million-dollar projects. Without my signature on the dotted line, insurance becomes void and funding gets yanked. I work for the country's biggest company, which we'll call AZ Pipes. I was by far their highest compensated technical employee below the executive tier, still underpaid given what I brought to the table, but I was aware of it. They were aware of it, and I genuinely enjoyed the work. The stability suited me. I essentially was the department. My only subordinate was a junior analyst, a fresh university graduate who was sharp but nowhere near ready to perform my role. He could operate the software, but reading the data was beyond him. He was a button pusher, and he knew it. AZ Pipes had been led by the same old guard leadership for decades. Tough, yes, but they understood how the business worked. They recognized my worth. Then, roughly a year before this story begins, the longtime CEO retired and his son-in-law stepped in as the new general manager. We'll call him a nephew. The nephew was a catastrophe in a suit. He was some guy in his 30s, slicked back hair, a shiny MBA from a third-tier American university, and not a single day of field experience. He was convinced the entire operation could be managed through an Excel spreadsheet. His mission: optimize everything, eliminate redundancies. In his eyes, I was the biggest redundancy of all. He couldn't wrap his head around why I earned what I did when, in his words, we have a $2 million software license. He was fundamentally incapable of understanding that the software was a tool, not the talent. Our first clash came 6 months earlier. He tried to optimize one of my survey routes by shifting it 500 meters north to cut down on pipe length. I refused to sign. The nephew said, "The computer says this route is 4% cheaper. You will sign it." Me, "The computer doesn't know this is an ancient alluvial flow path. If we get a 6.0 quake, which happens every 10 to 15 years here, the ground will liquefy and the pipe will shear. I will not sign this." The nephew replied, "This is insubordination. You're costing us millions." Me, "I'm saving us millions and preventing a massive environmental catastrophe." No, he escalated to the CEO, his father-in-law, who on that occasion sided with me. The old guard still carried weight, and they backed my position. The nephew was livid. He viewed me as an immovable, outdated obstacle blocking his glorious optimized vision. From that day on, I knew he was waiting for any excuse to be rid of me. And then I handed him one. My husband and I had been trying for a baby for years, and finally it happened. I was pregnant, and we were absolutely over the moon. I followed every proper procedure, waited until the second trimester, then submitted my official pregnancy leave request to HR. Now, our country's labor laws are complicated. They look wonderful on paper. A full 6 months of paid maternity leave, a holdover from the Soviet legal code. But in our current hyper-capitalist reality, particularly in the private sector, these laws are rarely honored. Most companies find a workaround, fire you, demote you, or make your life unbearable until you resign. That's the ugly, corrupt truth of the country I call home. But I wasn't a normal employee. I was the employee, and I was in the middle of the most significant project in AZ Pipe's history, the Transregional Pipeline, a multi-million-dollar behemoth that would define the company's legacy, and it was at its most critical stage, final route certification. Without my signature, the project couldn't break ground. I assumed they'd be frustrated but would ultimately have to swallow it, pay my leave, beg me to respond to the occasional email, and wait for my return. How wrong I was. A week after sending my email to HR, I received a meeting invite from the nephew. Subject line, Project Continuity. HR was CC'd. I walked into a room that felt like a freezer. The nephew was seated at the head of the table, smirking. The HR manager, a woman I'd always been on good terms with, wouldn't look at me. The nephew, thanks for coming in. We've received your request for your extended holiday. Me, it's not a holiday. It's legally mandated pregnancy leave. The nephew let out a short, sharp laugh. Yeah, well, we've run the numbers. Your so-called leave happens to coincide exactly with the final certification deadline for the Transregional. The board is not pleased. Your absence would delay the project and cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars per day in penalties. Me, that's why I've been training Junior. He can manage the day-to-day. The nephew slapped his hand on the table. Not hard, but pointed. Junior cannot sign. The Germans have been absolutely clear. They require the ISO XYZ signatory. And that's you. You're abandoning your post. You're failing your project commitments. Me, I'm having a baby. This is a legally protected, the nephew. Enough. We're not here to argue about the law. We're here to discuss your contract and find a solution that works for AZ Pipes. He slid a single sheet of paper across the table. HR has reviewed your case. Given your unique role as a critical signatory, your 6-month leave request is not approved. I stared at him. Not approved? This isn't a request that can be denied. It's my legal right. The nephew, that right is for office clerks, not for the individual holding a massive project hostage. Your employment contract stipulates that you will see this project through to certification. Your leave is a breach of that obligation. Me, that is not what the labor code states. The nephew, the board has authorized 2 options for you. We are, as you know, very generous. I glanced at the HR manager. She was studying the carpet. Option A, we acknowledge the inconvenience of your situation and will authorize a one-time paid pregnancy leave stipend. 2 weeks, effective immediately. Upon your return, you'll receive a one-time bonus of, he glanced at the paper, $50. I blinked. I was convinced I'd misheard. $50? The nephew. Yes. $50 for the inconvenience. Then you'll be back at your desk in 2 weeks to sign the Transregional paperwork. That is our official paid pregnancy leave offer. Me, that is insane. That's a joke. The nephew, that's the offer. $50, 2 weeks. Me, and option B, the nephew's smirk came back, predatory this time. He'd been waiting for this moment. Option B is termination. If you cannot agree to option A and return to work, you will be in breach of your contract. We will be forced to terminate your employment for failure to meet project commitments. So what's it going to be? The $50 or termination? This was it. His checkmate. He knew I was pregnant. He knew I needed the income, the salary, the health insurance. He thought he had me cornered. That I'd be forced to accept the insulting $50, crawl back in 2 weeks, sign his papers, and then get quietly discarded afterward. He'd break me, get his project certified, and be done with me. I looked at him. I looked at the HR manager, who was visibly trembling by now. He had me. He genuinely had me. I let the silence stretch. He was practically vibrating with triumph. Finally, I picked up the sheet of paper and looked at the option A/option B printed on it. Me. So, just to be completely clear for the HR record, my only two options as presented by AZ Pipes are to accept a $50 paid pregnancy leave package or termination. In other words, being fired for being pregnant. There are no other options. This is a final offer. The nephew. That is correct. We need your answer now. We have a project to run. I took a slow breath. I looked the nephew dead in the eyes. Me, all right. I made my decision. The nephew, smirking. Good. I'll have HR process the $50 stipend. Meh. No. I will comply with the offer. The nephew. And you'll be back on the 15th. Me. I accept the other option. I accept option B. I accept the termination. You know the sound a computer makes when you yank the power cord before shutting it down properly? That is the exact sound the nephew's brain produced. The smirk froze in place and then simply slid off his face. The nephew, what? Me. You gave me two options. Option A or option B, termination. I'm complying with your ultimatum. I choose termination. I am no longer your employee. Please have HR prepare my paperwork. I'll need the official termination letter for my records, stating the grounds for dismissal. The HR manager let out a small, audible gasp. The nephew, you can't be serious. You're quitting. You're abandoning the trans-regional. Me, I'm not quitting. You terminated me. Your words, failure to meet project commitments. I'm simply acting on the choice you presented. I do not accept your $50 offer. Therefore, per your own terms, I am terminated. Effective immediately, I presume. I stood up. I removed my company badge from my very pregnant self and set it on the table. I took out my office key and placed it beside the badge. The nephew. Wait. You. This is we are not. You are not. Me. Am I still an employee or am I terminated? You can't have it both ways. If I'm terminated, I need to leave. I'm no longer authorized to be on the premises. I walked toward the door. The nephew. This is insubordination. I will. You will. You will never work in this country again. Me. You've just made certain of that, haven't you? Please send my final documents to my home address. And congratulations on optimizing your department. I walked out. I have never walked that fast in my life. I didn't stop on my desk. My personal belongings were already packed in a box under it. I've been quietly preparing to leave for my actual maternity leave soon enough anyway. I walked straight out of the building. My phone started ringing before I even reached my car. The nephew declined. It rang again. The nephew declined. Again. HR declined. Again. My junior. I answered. Junior. Opie, what is happening? The nephew just stormed out of the conference room and threw a chair. He's screaming that you quit. Me? I didn't quit, Junior. I was terminated. Listen to me carefully. Do not touch the trans-regional files. Do not sign anything. Do you understand? Junior. But the German team is on a video call right now. They're asking for the final seismic projections. The nephew is telling them you're in a meeting. What do I do? Me. You tell them the truth. You tell them that AZ Pipes has terminated my employment and they need to speak to the nephew, who is now their point of contact. Then you go back to your desk and you update your resume. I'll be a reference for you. I hung up. I drove home. I blocked the nephew's number. I blocked the HR manager's number. I sat down with my husband and told him everything. He was terrified for about 10 seconds. Then he saw the expression on my face, and he just started laughing. The call that actually mattered came about 2 hours later. Unknown number. I answered. A voice, what have you done? It was the CEO, the nephew's father-in-law. Me. Hello, sir. I'm not entirely sure what you mean. I was terminated this morning. CEO. Terminated? That boy. He told me you threw your badge at him and quit. He said you demanded $1 million bonus. Me. Sir, that's not accurate. He offered me two options. Accept a $50 paid pregnancy leave package and return in 2 weeks, or face termination. I have the official offer sheet he handed me in the meeting, and I also have the full email chain. CEO, you have this in an email? Me, yes, sir. He sent a follow-up email to me and HR to formalize my refusal of the generous option A. He was building a paper trail, intending to demonstrate that I was the unreasonable party. I replied that I chose option B. He thought I was trapped. He was mistaken. The CEO then produced a sound I can only describe as a dying whale. CEO, my dear, there has been a terrible misunderstanding. That boy is a fool, an absolute idiot. He doesn't understand this business. Please, you must come back. This was all a dreadful mistake. Me? I'm sorry, sir. I can't. I've been terminated, and I'm no longer legally permitted to access your systems, perform work, or sign documents on behalf of AZ Pipes. Doing so would constitute fraud. CEO, I will unterminate you right now. You are unfired. I need you in the office immediately. The Germans are threatening to invoke the penalty clause. They're boarding a plane. They'll be here tomorrow. Me? Sir, I'm afraid I'm unable to do that. I'm now a free agent, and frankly, I'm feeling quite exhausted. I think I'll be starting my pregnancy leave early. CEO, we will double your salary. Triple it. Just sign the trans-regional papers. Name your price, please. Me? Sir, my price is simply not being treated like garbage. And you failed at that. Goodbye. I hung up and switched off my phone. I kept it off for an entire week. It was absolute bliss. My husband and I retreated to a small cabin by the lake. And just a quick note here, guys, if you enjoy these malicious compliance stories, please don't forget to like the video and drop a comment to show your support. It genuinely means a lot. Thank you. So, when I finally returned and powered my phone back on, I had 148 missed calls and over 300 messages. Here's what I was able to piece together through my junior, who'd been keeping me updated daily, and various friends still at the company. Day 1. The German consortium, let's call them Europipe, arrived. The nephew attempted to bluff his way through, claiming I was simply ill. Day 2. Europipe, led by a formidable auditor named Heschmidt, demanded to meet the ISO signatory in person. The nephew was forced to admit I was no longer with the company. Also on day 2, Heschmidt informed the CEO that this constituted a material breach of their funding agreement, as AZ Pipes had guaranteed my presence throughout the entire certification phase. The project was immediately suspended. Day 3, the CEO, in a fury, publicly dismissed the nephew and had him escorted out of the building by security. Day 4, AZ Pipes pressured Junior to sign the documents on my behalf, telling him to use his best judgment and approve the file. He, bless him, recognized immediately that this would make him the scapegoat. He panicked, declared he was unqualified, and sent me a one-line email. They're trying to make me a scapegoat. I'm out. He quit on the spot. Day 5, penalties kicked in. For every day the project remained halted, AZ Pipes owed the consortium $250,000. Day 6, the CEO called again. He begged. He pleaded. CEO, we are ruined. Please, name your price. A new contract, a signing bonus, $1 million. Just come back and sign the papers. Just this once. Me, I'm sorry. Sir, I can't. CEO, why? Is it the money? We'll give you whatever you want. Me, no, sir. It's because I'm currently sitting in the HR office at Caspian Tech, and I've just signed my new contract. The moment I hung up on the CEO that first time, I called the owner of Caspian Tech. Name also changed for privacy. They had been attempting to recruit me for 5 years, and I had always declined out of loyalty to my previous employer. I simply said, that offer you made me last year, is it still on the table? His response, when can you start? I laid out my entire situation, the termination, the pregnancy, everything. He didn't hesitate for a second. He told me to come in, sign the contract, and then go on my maternity leave. He wasn't hiring me for the next 8 months. He was hiring me for the next 20 years. He also understood perfectly well that AZ Pipes was finished without me, and this was his opportunity to secure the single most valuable professional asset in the country, my certification. Caspian Tech didn't merely match my previous salary, they doubled it. They offered me a partner track position, along with a genuine paid maternity leave package. 8 months, fully paid, beginning after my signing bonus cleared. When I eventually returned to work, Caspian Tech operated in a dramatically different landscape. The trans-regional pipeline project had defaulted. Europipe had legally and furiously stripped the entire multi-million-dollar contract from AZ Pipes. The contract went back out for rebid, and only 2 companies in the country were remotely positioned to compete for it. A bankrupt AZ Pipes with no certified staff remaining, or Caspian Tech. The proposal Caspian Tech submitted was a masterpiece. The geotechnical section, the most critical component, was written entirely by me. I laid out in meticulous technical detail every flaw in AZ Pipe's original and signed routing and demonstrated precisely how my new, safer route would save the consortium 10% over the lifetime of the project. Caspian Tech won the bid. All of it. AZ Pipes was finished. They lost their flagship project, were drowning in penalty debt, and their reputation was in ruins. They were compelled to liquidate their assets for a fraction of their value just to satisfy their creditors. Last I heard, they had been fully acquired by a foreign holding company and no longer exist as a brand. The CEO was pushed into a deeply unglamorous retirement. The nephew, last I heard, is selling used cars at his uncle's dealership. And me? I'm now a full partner at Caspian Tech, which has become the largest pipeline company in the country. Never mess with a pregnant woman. The next story is a fantastic HOA malicious compliance tale you won't want to miss. Brand new and titled, HOA says every violation gets reported. Okay, then every violation gets reported. So, I live in a townhouse community just outside Boise, Idaho. We have an HOA, but it's always been pretty hands-off. They handle landscaping in the common areas, and that's basically the extent of it. 3 months ago, a guy named Marcus moved in next door and immediately joined the HOA board. Didn't wait to observe how things operated. Just went straight in. He's been firing off violation notices for everything imaginable. My neighbor received one because her doormat was burgundy rather than brown or black. I didn't even know that was a rule. Another resident was cited because his car was parked 3 inches past his driveway line into the guest spot. And 2 weeks ago, I got one too. My son had left his skateboard on our front porch, and apparently recreational equipment must be stored out of sight. To be clear, it had been there for maybe 4 hours. He'd just gotten home from school. I asked Marcus if he might consider knocking on doors for minor things before sending out official notices, and he literally said, "Rules are rules. If I start making exceptions, where does it end?" Fine. I sat down and read the entire HOA covenant. All 47 pages of it, untouched since 2008. Turns out there are rules nobody follows. For instance, no security cameras visible from the street. Marcus has a Ring doorbell. No decorative flags except the U.S. flag on specific holidays. At least 8 houses have seasonal garden flags. Garbage bins must be stored in the garage, not visible from the street. Everyone keeps them on the side of the house. No vehicles with commercial signage may park overnight. The plumber 3 doors down has his company van sitting out every night. So I began filing reports. Every single violation I could document. I spent roughly 2 hours walking the neighborhood with my phone, photographing everything, and submitting the online forms. About 30 violations filed in a single week. The HOA president called me, a retired woman named Joan, who's been volunteering in this role for around 15 years. She sounded completely exhausted. She asked what I was doing, and I told her I was simply ensuring all violations were reported consistently. Rules are rules, right? She explained that they were now obligated to issue notices for everything I'd officially submitted, and it was a disaster. Half the board members were getting cited, including Marcus, and people were furious. Marcus showed up at my door yesterday. He didn't raise his voice. He just looked worn out and asked whether we could find a reasonable middle ground going forward. I said, sure, that sounds good. But now Joanne keeps shooting me. These looks like I've made her life significantly harder. And if I'm being honest, I do feel a little guilty about that part. She didn't do anything wrong, after all. And hey guys, if you'd like to share your own malicious compliance stories with the community, head over to our /ripe stories on Reddit, where you can post your own full-length tales, and I might just feature them in a future video. The final story is another malicious compliance gem titled, "In order to request time off, I have to fill out a sheet posted directly below the schedule in the break room, visible to every single employee, and it asks for the reason I need the time off. I don't need my entire workplace knowing my personal business, so I always left that field blank. Here's the kicker, though. I was reprimanded for it and denied the time off I was owed. I was told a reason was required. So, enter malicious compliance. To satisfy the demand, I started filling in that field with extremely specific, completely fabricated reasons. Random Tuesday, dentist appointment. That Thursday, gambling addiction counseling. That Friday, I cannot come in because I am simply exhausted by this place and require a mental health day. Absolutely. Testicular cancer screening. And today, I was asked to please stop filling in the reason box. And there you have it, folks. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. Check out my playlist on the left for endless content, and I'll see you next time.